The Dodgers are slumping and thought they could come to Oakland and pick up 3 quick wins. Not going to happen.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans. Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about your Oakland A's all year long in this very weird year. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks. I think is it PrizePicks? Yeah, it is PrizePicks. I'm sorry. PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for first deposit match up to $100. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And I'm doing one of those wraparound shows where we review the entire weekend. I'm recording this very late on Friday night. I want to get this one in the can because I'm going to be out and about on Saturday. I want to get my thoughts on it fresh. And the game only ended a couple hours ago, Friday's game. So I had mentioned on Thursday's show that the A's were catching Los Angeles Dodgers at a weird point. They've made some interesting trades, including Flaherty to strengthen their starting rotation. They made Kopech from Chicago. Kiermaier is coming in there. And so they made some interesting moves. But the Dodgers have been on a bit of a slump. They've been on a bit of a slide. And the A's are catching them when they're a tiny bit wobbly. Now, I'm sure that when they took a look at the schedule and they saw the Oakland A's were next on the schedule, like a lot of teams going to this year, and a lot of teams who played the A's in their disastrous May and June, they thought, okay, we're going to pick up some wins here. Couple easy wins here, pick them right up. But I would say the A's were catching the Dodgers at the right time. They're coming in Oakland, a little wobbly, and the A's, say it with me, were the best team in the American League in July. And there is a new motivation that could indeed happen with the A's for the rest of this year, 2024, their final year in Oakland. All right, let's review a little bit about the game. Things look bad right from the start. Teoscar Hernandez homered in the first inning, and suddenly the A's were down 2 runs before they even came to bat. Like, oh boy, is our August going to look like all the other losing months of this year? The Dodgers were starting Stone, who's been pretty good this year. And, they're leading off Ohtani, but they had Gavin Lux batting third. And Teoscar Hernandez was batting fourth. Hayward was in the start. There is no Betts in this lineup. There is no Freeman in this lineup. This is a vulnerable lineup. And so this was a good showing for Estes, who started off the game as bad as you could hope for. But these are not the A's of earlier this year. And Shea Langoliers homered in the 4th inning to make it 2-1. Next up, Seth Brown. He homered, and suddenly, after 4, it was tied. Langoliers has 21 homers. He has an outside shot at 30. Seth Brown has 10 homers. And then Andujar tripled. And Andujar had a terrific game. And I'm selfishly glad that Andujar and Rooker are still on this team. Because, yeah, they could tear the team down and get some prospects, or they could have a couple of major leaguers in there. J.J. Bleday hit the double, and then Brent Rooker got home run number 27, and suddenly it was a 6-2 ball game. Now, hanging over this game, like the ads that flipped over that suddenly became Japanese ads whenever Shohei Ohtani was up, Ohtani came up in 2 key innings, in the 7th and the 9th. And the one in the 7th, he came up with the bases loaded in a 6-2 game and 2 outs. And they had already lifted Estes, who, after letting up 2 runs in the first inning, basically shut him out the rest of the way. But McFarland did not look good. He let up a hit and a walk in the 7th inning, and Adams came out, got a big strikeout, but had to face Ohtani as the tying run. And he wound up grounding out to second and the threat. Now, in the 9th, it was still 6-2 in the 9th. There were 2 runners on, and Ferguson was on the mound. And with 2 outs, Ohtani had 2 strikes, and I turned to my mother-in-law, who I was watching the game with, and I said, this is going to be a homer. And the next pitch he threw was a home run. And not one molecule in my body was nervous. Oh, my God, it's a 1-run game. So what? He might as well have walked. In fact, it was a crowd-pleasing moment. The fans who were there, a lot of them were there to see Ohtani. They got to go home and say, we saw an Ohtani homer and an A's win. Because Smith came up and grounded out. Next thing you know, the A's won game 1. And this is the key. This happened all throughout July when the A's were, say it with me, the best team in the American League. They kept doing the right thing, which was winning game 1 of the series. And by doing that, they have put LA in a situation where they have to win out. All the A's have to do is split the next 2. And to say, do you know what? They won series in the last month and a half against Philadelphia, Houston, Los Angeles. These are not tomato cans. And with that, in front of 21,000 fans, not a bad crowd, 21,000 there. That's a regular baseball crowd. They saw the A's win game 1. And another interesting thing has happened. You may not have noticed this, or maybe you have. But another game way away in Anaheim, the Mets wound up beating the Angels 5-1. And you got to see Pete Alonso get a big home run. And friend of the family, Paul Blackburn. Remember I mentioned he was pitching against the Angels? Blackburn made his, it sounded like I was about to sing a Beatles song. Blackbird made his debut with the Mets. And he pitched 6 innings and allowed 1 run, striking out 6. Pitched very, very well, thank you very much. His first game with the Mets, defeating the Angels. Do you know what that means? The Angels have dropped their last 3 games. The Angels are 47-63. The A's have won 7 of their last 10 games. They're 46-65. The A's are only 2 games back in the loss column of the Angels. Stop and think about what that means. There is a real possibility that the A's, with all the things going against them, the horrible ownership, the turmoil of what's going to happen, are they going to play in Sacramento? People aren't showing up because they're mad. The team is a mess. The team has no budget, lowest payroll in baseball, all the things happening. There is a chance that they can finish the season not in last place. That was one of the goals I wanted for the team. But it's now within their grasp. This is the aftermath of the tremendous July that they have. Because the Angels stunk. And the Angels stink. And the Angels are an incompetent organization. And they're not going to have Mike Trout the rest of the year, sad as that may be. So there is a possibility. You know, there is an act. Now, you know what happened because we're dropping this on Monday morning. But if the A's win tomorrow and the Mets win, if the A's sweep the Dodgers and the Mets sweep the Angels, then the A's will climb out of the cellar. The A's will not be a last place team in August. And that is not something we thought was going to happen. And I think that's pretty cool. All right. Well, you already know what happens, but I don't. I'm excited to see what happens on Saturday's game. So Saturday is going to be tomorrow. The A's are playing Los Angeles, and I believe it's a 1 o'clock start, or is it? No, it's a 6 o'clock start. I'm sorry, 6 o'clock start. Flaherty is making his first appearance with Los Angeles. Spence is pitching for the A's, and no one knows what that's going to mean. But come on, A's, win one of these next 2 games. Just split the next 2 games, and you'll have defeated the Dodgers 2-1 at the worst case scenario. Now, if they win tomorrow, I will be hoping for a sweep. But let's win tomorrow first. Flaherty versus Spence. You know what's going to happen. I don't. Let's find out. Hey, let's hear from our friends over at Liquid IV. You got to stay hydrated if you're going to be watching baseball, especially in August. So, how are you going to stay hydrated? From eating ice cream out of one of those plastic helmets by pounding sodas? No, you got to use Liquid IV. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's popsicle firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the number one powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. If you like flavors, we got flavors. Blast off with the iconic summer flavor of popsicle firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. Find all your favorite flavors on the website, from acai berry and lemon lime to pina colada, and you had me at raspberry. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by LIV Hydroscience, and optimized and trademarked ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, always vegan, always gluten-free, always dairy-free, always soy-free, always worry-free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On A's your first listen. Do you like me? Do you like me as a host? Well, guess what? For your second listen, have more of your pal Sully on Locked On MLB. I'm there every day to provide you national expertise with my evidently trademark humor. I'm not getting any money from this trademark. To help you get through the Major League Baseball playoffs here in the dog days of summer, prepare for the Fall Classic with me, your pal Sully, who has it covered every day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. All right, I'm recording this pretty late on Saturday, and there's really not a lot to talk about. You know, the Saturday game is in some ways my favorite way to see the team I'm following lose. The final score was 10-0. The beauty of a 10-0 game is there is no frustration. Now, if you happen to have any member of the A's on your fantasy team, yeah, that kind of stinks. But I've pointed this out before. I would much rather see my team lose 10-0 than 3-2. You want to have a frustrating game, go out to Seattle. If you're a Philadelphia fan, your team lost 6-5. The Phillies lost 6-5 in 10 innings. And how did the Mariners walk off the game? With a 2-out, bases-loaded walk. There is no stupider way to lose a game than on a 2-out, bases-loaded, full-count walk. Because you're literally handing the game to the team. Just lob it down the middle of the plate. If you lob it down the middle of the plate, they could swing and miss. They could take it. They could hit into the ground for a ground-up. They could pop it up. But if you allowed a walk-off grand slam, then at least you say, all right, they hit a grand slam. But instead, ball 4, Mariners get the walk-off win, and there you go. By the way, just so you know, it was not a great night for the A's. Obviously, they lost 10-0. And the Angels, who were losing a big chunk of the game, especially after J.D. Martinez of the Mets hit a grand slam, but the Angels came back to win the game. So they picked up a game. They're 3 games ahead of the A's at this point. You may not have noticed that the Mariners, with that walk-off win, are now in first place by themselves in the American League West. And at least for the time being, have pushed the Astros out of the playoffs. Now, they are tied with the Astros in the loss column, but there you go. But, the goal for the A's, I think, should be to try to have a winning August and hopefully leapfrog the Angels and get out of the cellar. Today, Flaherty pitched well. There was a brutal third strike call on Rooker in the first. Now, you could say, Sully, it's a 10-0 game. How can you point anything out? Well, in the first inning, it was 0-0. And there were 2 runners on, and the ump got a called third strike on Rooker that sucked. That just sucked. And there was a whole thing about how the Alex Tosi at the beginning, who was the home plate umpire, there was a big thing. Well, he calls a high and low strike. It's like umpires shouldn't have their own strike zones. Okay, it was a brutal called third strike on Rooker. If Rooker had got a hit or a home run, the A's could have jumped ahead. But instead, the A's didn't score then, didn't score ever. And to be fair, the final score was 10-0. It was 2-0 going into the 8th. It was a 2-0 game going into the 8th. It was anyone's game going into the 8th. And then, the roof caved in. In the 8th inning, you saw the Kiki Hernandez, who I'll bring up again, got the RBI double, and then it was 4-0, and then the 9th, Rosario singles, Smith singles, Hayward singles, Kiki Hernandez singled, wild pitch. There was not even the one big, huge extra base hit. All right, here is the humiliating part. I've said on this podcast and on Locked On MLB, which I just recommended you listen to, that I am all for waving the white flag. I believe when you bring in a position player, you're basically waving the white flag. You're saying, look, we're saving our pitchers. We're giving up. We're giving up. We're giving up. We're giving up. It's a different animal, and I think that you should be able to say, look, we're losing 10-0. Let's just call it a day. Let's go call it a day. And a team should be allowed to do that. When the winning team brings in a infielder to pitch, which they did with Kiki Hernandez, that's kind of humiliating. That's kind of like, oh boy, this is not good. That they're saying we're so comfortable with our lead, we'll put in a non-pitcher to close it out. And that's what he did. And it was not a save situation. And guess what? He only allowed 1 base runner. So look, it was a good game until the 8th, and then the Dodgers pulled away, and the final score was 10-0. I do think the final score is a little misleading, and I think the A's could have, there were some points they could have put some runs on the board, but it didn't happen. Okay. Beto against Ryan. That's actually kind of an even matchup of 2 pitchers without a hell of a lot of experience. They're 2 pitchers who some people probably think should be in AAA or facing off. So we'll see. We're going to see what happens. You already know what happens. But if the A's win on Sunday, do you know what? All is well in the world. Is it embarrassing that they brought in a freaking infielder to finish up the game? Yeah. Would it be more embarrassing for Los Angeles to lose a series in Oakland? File that under yeah, too. So we'll see who gets embarrassed starting tomorrow. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, with PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more than and less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as few as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Get in the excitement with 100 times your cash with the summer games on PrizePicks. With PrizePicks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 while you're watching Team USA rack up the gold medals this summer. And you can make PrizePicks lineup across basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and more in as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more than and less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you are locked in. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. With PrizePicks, it really is that easy. Thanks for making Locked On A's your first listen. Check out my other show, Locked On MLB. Prepare for the Fall Classic with me, your pal Sully. I've got to cover it every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. I remember having a disagreement with my dad once, or at least a moment where my dad looked at me like I had lost my GD mind. I said I would much rather have my team lose 20-0 than 1-0 or 10-9. I said 10-9 was the worst. He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, when you lose 20-0, who are you going to blame? When you lose by 1 run, you can nitpick it all day." I also said at one point during a game where we were watching the Giants, my dad was a rabid Giant fan, and the Giants were winning by 2 runs. Let's say it was 6-4. And the Giants pitcher let up a home run, which made it 6-5. My dad said, "Damn it." It was the bottom of the ninth. I said, "Damn it." And I said, "Dad, it's no different if he got a walk." And again, he looked at me as if I had, as they said in the film Christmas Story, lobsters crawling out of my ear. But I was right. Who cares if you lose 6-4, 6-5, or if you win 6-4, 6-5? It doesn't matter. If he walked or hit a home run, you still have the lead. That's what happened on Friday. Well, yesterday's 10-0 game was closer than the final score indicated. I pointed that out, that it was a 2-run game going to the 8th. But by the end, you just shrugged. Today was a punch to the face because there was every opportunity to beat the Dodgers, to win against the Dodgers, and to have that sort of swagger of, yeah, the A's took on the Phillies and won, took on the Astros and won. Now we took on the Dodgers and won. Yeah, because I'm actually secretly Stomper. But it didn't happen. Oh, it felt great. Well, it felt like garbage. The top of the first when they scored 2 runs before the A's even came to bat. But then Rooker tied it up. And give Beto and the rest of the A's credit. They only allowed 1 run after the first inning and no runs after the third. But give LA's pitching credit. They only let up the Rooker homer. And this is the second straight day where a called third strike on Rooker came back to bite him in the butt. Now, when Kiermaier of Los Angeles, who is a superb defensive outfielder, he's announced he's going to retire after this year, and so the Dodgers picked him up essentially to give them outfield depth and probably become a defensive replacement. When he lost the ball in the sun, and I believe it was Toro got on second base, we all thought, all right, he's going to come around and score. He's going to come around and score. That's all there is to it. And it didn't happen. And it's not like the Dodgers brought out a parade of perennial Cy Young Award winners to win. They just pitched well, and they got out of innings when they needed to. And this was, remember I say the keys to any A's win for this year: avoid the other teams to have a big inning, don't make stupid mistakes, and try to score in a way other than a homer. Well, they didn't do the third one. They needed 2 modest rallies, a run here and a run there, and it's a series win. they played well, but I have bigger fish to fry right now with the A's. The Mets didn't help the A's a bit. They played super sloppy baseball and dropped the second and third games, both by 1 run in Anaheim. And today was a mess, as one of the key runs came on a completely unnecessary wild pitch. The Mets catcher just was set up as if he was sitting on a rocking chair, and the ball got away from him. I don't remember who the Mets announcer was. It was either Keith Hernandez or Ron Darling. But they started absolutely chewing out the Mets catcher for how he was set up. And in the end, the Angels won by 1. So the Angels picked up some ground, which sucks. I want to see the A's win series and capture the Angels. Well, those glorious words are coming up for the upcoming games. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox are having one of the worst years in the history of baseball. And it was funny. They had Scott Hatterberg on the A's broadcast today to remember the 20-game winning streak of 2002. And to remember that, which was so gloriously referred to in Moneyball. Well, the White Sox are in a similar boat, but in the other direction. They've now lost 20 games in a row. 20 in a row. And they're coming to Oakland. Let's not get cocky, folks, because eventually, I don't care how bad you are, you're eventually going to win a game. And the White Sox, who have not won a game since the All-Star break, and they almost have as many losses in this streak as they've had wins all season long. They've won 27 games this year, and they've dropped 20 in a row. I kind of was hoping they would win this series because the odds are eventually they're going to win a game. And yes, the White Sox are 20 games in the loss column behind the A's. Okay? Well, I'm happy the A's have their nose above 400. The White Sox nose is not above 250. They've lost more than 75% of the games they've played. That's not even possible. Don't get cocky. Remember, the A's had a horrible, and did I mention horrible, month of May and June, where they won single digits in those 2 months. Not combined, but it felt like it. And teams were beating them up. They lost an entire road trip, and people were circling the A's on their schedule and say, here comes 3 easy wins. Can't do that, A's. Focus. Treat the White Sox like you're playing the Dodgers, okay? Treat this like big games. The A's have to win everything. They have to keep winning series if they want to climb out of the cellar. And yeah, I think that's a worthy task for this team, to finish the year out of the cellar, to finish ahead of the Angels. And step 1, dust yourself off from a frustrating series with Los Angeles, face one of the worst teams in baseball history, and do what you're supposed to do. Most people thought the A's were going to be one of the worst teams in baseball history, and that has not turned out to be the case. Now, no one's going to, confuse this team with 1989 anytime soon. But they got to win games. They got to win games they're supposed to win. They were supposed to win the games against the Angels. They did. Now they're supposed to win the games against the Chicago White Sox. Let's see how they do. All right. I'm doing a couple episodes. I'm going to be answering a lot of your viewer questions. So if you have any questions, I have a bunch already lined up, but I'm going to be doing that the next episode. I'm going to be covering the White Sox series. And I'm going to be doing a couple other interesting shows because I'm going to be your host for all of August and all of September. But it looks like at the end of the regular season, I'm probably going to say goodbye to you all. It's been a lot of fun, but doing 2 podcasts a day is a lot. So then check out that other podcast, which is Locked On MLB. And I'll undoubtedly talk about the A's a lot as well. But I got a bunch of very special shows planned for the next couple of months. And so keep tuning into here, follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter, whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. Follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talk about the LA Oakland series, and man, it could have been something great. This has been Locked On A's. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.